Welcome to lesson 1 of community building. This is all about connecting your loyal fans to increase advocacy and lifetime value of your customers. In this course overall, here's the journey that we're going to be taking. So first, we're going to start out talking about brand community and belonging. This lesson in particular will be all about defining these key terms that so many people think they know, but get wrong, and then it has major negative domino impacts throughout their work. Then we're gonna go through defining your strategic goals. So what is it that you're trying to drive toward? What are your outcomes as an organization and you as a leader that you want to achieve? And then we'll go into the actual quick and dirty community research. So I call it quick and dirty because when we say the word research, we get a sense of heaviness and that it's going to take us a very long time. What we're really doing with our work is talking to people. So we're going to learn how to talk to people so that we can gain insights that will then inform our community strategy. Once you've gathered all that research, we're going to then craft a purpose and values. This is going to be your unique purpose and your unique values. And then you're going to set some expectations for what growth and engagement for your community will look like. And finally, we're going to wrap this up with you actually reaching out to some of your community's founding members and inviting them to participate in a meaningful experience with you. So we're really going from the 101 level all the way into actually gathering people by the end of the course and building relationships throughout. As soon as we start that research portion, you're starting to build your relationships. So I'm really excited for you to not only learn these foundational principles and learn the language of community building, but then to apply it as well. So let's get going. This lesson 1 is on brand community and belonging. And again, this is all about definition. So our objectives for this particular lesson are 1, to get in the right mindset to build a community. There's a particular mindset that is required to build a community that is true and authentic and not going to be perceived of by your members as extractive, manipulative, creepy, or weird in some other way. Then we will define the key terms that you need to build community. And these key terms are 1, the word community. What does it actually mean? Then the word brand community. How is it different from community as a term? Then we will talk about the differences between participants, visitors, and members. People oftentimes use these terms interchangeably. They are not interchangeable, and you will learn why. We'll talk about belonging and how that is manifested in the world. We will define what shared experiences are. This is what you'll actually be crafting by the end of this course. You will learn what engagement means for community building, which is different from what it means for marketing. And then you will understand what mirage communities are, as I promised in the introduction to this course. So all together, you'll then be able to identify in your life and maybe in your work where there are mirage communities showing up to make sure that you are not building one of your own with your work. So let's get started. First, let's talk about the community builder's mindset. So there is a particular mindset that is needed for this work, which is contrary to how we normally think about our work, especially in a fast-moving startup at a large enterprise. We are normally go, go, go. And when we're building community, we cannot move at the pace of technology. We have to move at the pace of people. And so we really need to stop thinking so much and making such a primary focus of our work, growth for growth's sake, scale for scale's sake. We instead need to be thinking about how we can reward, how we can notice, and how we can recognize this work that's happening already all around us. So let's talk about what that mindset entails. I include this picture of an ocean because it's important to become like the waves, as I say, that you can flow with the work and that you're not so rigid in everything that you do. So let's get into a couple of mindset, vital information about mindset. So 1, I want you to know that when you're starting this work, that you're actually not really starting. You have experience in community because you're a human being and humans are social creatures. You might not realize that you've been building community your entire life. You might not realize that so much of what you do is done in community, and you might not know everything that you don't know today. But we will understand where you have gaps. And really what we want to do is lean on what we already know as social creatures in the world. You're here, you're alive today because of communities. 2, One thing that happens with a lot of community builders that I work with is they feel like they are asking for a lot. They're asking over and over and over again for favors, for people's time, their resources. And I just want to remind you that you are not asking for too much. You are not asking for too much. People have the agency to tell you no if it's not a good ask for them, if they're not able to meet that ask with grace. This work, at the end of the day, is not about you. And that's why I say you're not asking too much, because you're not asking for things for yourself. You're asking for things that further a deeper purpose. So you might be asking for things, you yourself as an individual, but really you're asking for something on behalf of furthering a purpose. Now, it can often feel like it's all about you, and you can feel very exposed when you don't have a clear and distinct purpose. So that's why that is so critical to true community building work. Next, we need to think about how important it is not only to be able to be flexible, like the ocean, like the waves, to flow, but also to know when to stand your ground. You are going to be balancing not only your own emotions, but also the emotions and experiences of your members. And then on the flip side of that, the experiences within your organization. And oftentimes these two things are at odds. So it's really, really important that you know that this is going to be something you're going to have to flow back and forth on, and you will come up against contradictions between what members want and what is best for the organization. You will run into contradictions. So knowing where your principles are, what your values are, that is what is going to help you to bend and be more flexible with this work, but also to be boundaried about it so that you're not simply always doing what your organization wants you to do, or feel like you can't make any progress because your members want something so different from what your organization wants. So that is really, really critical to understanding and really embodying what it means to be flowing in this work. Next, another mindset piece that is so important is to become aware of things that trigger you. And I don't just mean, trauma triggers. I mean things that trigger you to go back to the go, go, go mindset, that trigger you to go back to always thinking about scale, always thinking about more. These are the kinds of triggers I'm talking about. So what is it that actually triggers you to revert back to that mindset? You're going to need to become aware of what that is for you. So I can share for myself that comparison is often what triggers me to revert back to these mindsets. And I struggle with them, even after over 15 years of this work. And so what happens is I will compare myself or my work to the work of other community builders and see, this community is larger than mine, or this one, they're having more events than I am. And that will make me think, oh, I just need to do more of something. And so I can recognize that when I'm deep in comparison, I'm not doing my best work. So for you, that will be something completely unique for your experience, but again, recognizing that is going to be a vital piece of the mindset needed for this work for you. And then finally, I want to remind you that building community is not always about having a concrete outcome, a concrete ROI, return on investment, and it's almost never going to have great quantitative metrics. We'll talk a little bit about those when we get to the research, and also setting expectations. But a lot of the meaning that comes out of brand communities is in the qualitative, in the experience that you might be feeling, and in emotions, which are impossible to quantify. And so we have to suspend our discomfort with not having clear answers, because people are unpredictable and none of this work is ever static. It is always evolving and always changing. And if you're standing still with it and not listening to people, you're not doing your job. So these are some of the key pillars of a community builder's mindset. And what you should recognize here is that these are hard. These are really hard things to keep in mind. And so if you need to keep coming back to this video, keep coming back to the mindset when you're feeling stuck, please do so. Let this be a reminder to you and an encouragement to you to keep going, even and especially when it's difficult. Okay, so with the mindset out of the way, I want to really drive home how important it is to focus on purpose and people all the time. If nothing else, if you forget everything else I teach in this course, remember how important it is to talk to the people and to return to really crisp and clear purpose in all of your work. If you're ever lost, come right back here. Whew, okay, key definitions. That's a lot to cover. Let's shake it off. Okay, so the key definitions that we are going to cover today include, first, community. What is community? Everyone thinks they know what community is. And as I mentioned, you do know what community is. You've experienced it in your life. I know that you have. But a lot of people don't understand that things that we often call community are not community. And so the crisp and clear definition of community is simply a group of people who share mutual concern for one another. What I see in my work more than anything else is a lack of the mutual concern being present. So there might be a group of people that you've gathered, but they don't know who each other are. They don't care who one another are. And so they're not really a community at that point. So there are a couple of fundamental components of this group of people in addition to this very broad definition. One, people have to share an identity. It doesn't have to be their whole identity, but some part of their identity that is founded in some shared values, and people have to meet more than once. So a group that only meets one time is not a community, it's a campaign. So one example I can give you is the difference between, let's say, all fans of the Patriots. Okay, you've got the Patriots football team. All fans might be a group of people who share an identity. They might be sharing some values, and they also might meet more than once. But all fans of the Patriots do not share mutual concern for one another's welfare because it's just frankly too large of a group. And you'll see why the difference between this and a real community in just a second. So the difference here would be moving from fans of the Patriots to a local group of fans that meets, let's say, at a bar to watch the games every single week and comes back. And not only do they meet at that bar to watch games, but they also have formed friendships. They have deepened their relationships. They talk about things that are not just about football. That is an example of a community. People in that community care for one another. They are not just there to watch the game, but also to be part of and in relationship with one another. So we're gonna go even deeper into that throughout this video today. All right, so you know what a community is. What is a brand community though? It seems like it would be something totally different, but in fact, it's actually the exact same thing as a community. It's just a community that has an aspiration to serve both the individuals within a community and organizational goals. So all of the definitions of community apply here, but the main difference is that it is stewarded by an organization. And if you're creating something that is totally different from a community and you're just slapping the word community on it, then that is not community just because you've deemed it so. Now, here's another tricky set of definitions. So people often use the terms participants, visitors, and members interchangeably, but they are not the same thing. Not everyone who has ever been on your community webpage or been to one of your events is part of your community. So let's look at why. We have participants overall. Participants are anyone who freely takes an action to participate in a community in some way. So really anyone who comes and goes from an event, anyone who has ever posted anything in your group, you can consider all of those to be participants. However, visitors and members are just different types of participants. So a visitor is someone who seeks to learn more about your community. They might have stumbled upon it and they might be taking a look around but not have crossed a threshold to be part of the community yet. They're just observing at that point. And then your members are people who return to connect with other people within the community. So they consider themselves a regular participant, and typically, ideally, they've gone through some form of initiation so that they actually know that they are a member of your community. Even if that initiation is something as simple as, filling out a registration form and then confirming their email. Even that is a gate that they can pass through to initiate themselves into a community. So in communities that you've been a part of, let's say you're part of a hiking club, okay? Just because you have RSVP'd to one meetup event for a hiking club does not mean that you are a member of that hiking club community. It does mean that you're visiting it. It does mean that you're participating in it. But until you become an actual member and start to consider yourself an actual member, you are not a member of that community. So what is really, really important to understand here is that to participate and to motivate participation, we need 3 conditions to be met. 1, people must feel like they have a choice in the matter. So you need to be able to say, yes, I am a member of this hiking community, or I'm ready to leave. I don't want to be part of this community anymore. If there is not a choice, then you're either part of a voluntelling effort or you're part of a cult. And we should talk about that further. The second condition is connection. So connection not only from the brand to the members, but from members to members. It's that many-to-many connection that is really critical for participation to take place. And finally, progress. When people don't feel like they're making meaningful progress, they stop participating in communities. So in order to move people from visitors to members, it's important that you give them the choice. It's important that you allow them to connect with other members, and it's important that you help them make meaningful progress in their lives. So that's how we go from visitor to full-fledged member. All right. Next, what is belonging? So belonging is simply a feeling. It's a feeling that shows up for people when they feel valued and they also feel like they are a fit for an environment. So these feelings can manifest as feeling accepted, feeling welcomed, feeling valued, cared for, appreciated, or possessing some kind of insider understanding that other people don't possess. And so belonging is not something that as of yet can be accurately and reliably quantified. So instead, what we do is we often ask, do you feel like you belong to a community? And people just give their feeling, usually on a Likert scale, 1 to 7, 1 to 5, of how much belonging they feel. But this is really something that can only be reported as a feeling that one individual feels, and we can't say for someone else how much they feel belonging. But this is what we're trying to create all the time in the work that we do. Create a sense of being accepted, welcomed, valued, and appreciated. And I'm sure that if you think about the communities that are important to you in your life, they probably help you feel this way. Next, we have shared experiences. So by the end of this course, you're going to create one of these. They are an event for a community that articulates, references, or reinforces the group's shared values. So this is what you're going to shape in the form of a synchronous online event, an asynchronous forum, a chat, an audio group, an in-person gathering, however you want to conceive of this. This is what you're going to create for your community to actually get together and gather together. Then we have engagement. So this term is really fun, especially for marketers, because engagement means something completely different in marketing than it does in community. But often people think that it doesn't, that it means the same thing, that it's simply looking at likes and clicks and things like that are meaningful engagement in a community. Now, this kind of engagement is maybe engagement by some definitions, but it's what I would consider to be empty engagement. Just because someone likes a post that you've put in a Facebook group, for instance, does not mean that they are meaningfully engaged. They have to be connected to either the purpose or the people, those 2 Ps, in order for that engagement to be meaningful. So we really need to contextualize engagement for our specific purposes. But overall, engagement is any participation that supports connecting to the community's purpose or to fellow members. And finally, we have mirage communities. So mirage communities are groups that aspire to be communities and might even call themselves communities, but they are lacking some of the key components that you have learned about choice, connection, or progress, or they are lacking a group that comes together over multiple experiences, or lacking that mutual concern. Let's talk about some mirage communities in your own life so that you understand how to not create a mirage and to create a true and authentic brand community that actually creates the kinds of results that you're looking for. So how can we tell a mirage community from the real thing? There are 2 questions to consider. I should say there's 2 caveats to consider. One is that from the outside, you often can't tell if something is a mirage or not until you get quite close. So for instance, if you've just been invited to be part of your favorite brand's community via an email and you click, I want to join the community, and they send you to a Facebook bot to talk, you might feel disappointed by this. And so you wouldn't really know whether that is a true community or not unless you yourself experienced that sense of belonging. Now, on the other hand, you might think that just because you don't like the way that a community is set up, say for a fan forum, for some kind of video or some kind of YouTube series, let's say, that you are not yourself a fan of. Just because you don't understand and don't feel a sense of belonging does not mean that other people don't feel that sense of belonging too. So really, the only thing that distinguishes this mirage community from a real community are these factors. Do people have a choice to come and go? Are they connecting many to many? And are they making meaningful progress? And then again, are they meeting only once? Are they meeting a lot of times? Is there mutual concern, or is this mostly a transactional effort? Do they have a common identity and values, or are they just a random group of people? So those are all of the factors that need to be present for something not to be a mirage. So we call this a mirage community because until you get really close to it, you often cannot tell whether it's a community. And there are a lot of communities out there that do build themselves as a community, and then you get really close and you see, oh no, this is just an email list, or oh no, this is just a one-time event that will never happen again. So that's what we do not want to create here, what we won't be creating here. All right, so now let's talk through some simulations. Are these communities or are they mirages? Number one, would a Lady Gaga concert tour be a community? Think about that for a second. Well, there are multiple shared experiences happening. So Lady Gaga is performing at multiple concerts. However, people are unlikely to be connecting to one another, and so it's probably more of an audience than it is a community. Now, what about a support forum that has all your staff that's active in it, but no returning customers who are members, who are participating? Is that a community? Here the answer is no, because you have no one returning to participate in shared experiences. Maybe it's a great community for your staff, but it's not working to engage your members meaningfully. Next, what about a single speaker event for, let's say, GitHub, or an organization that's brought in an outside speaker to not only engage staff, but also to bring in outsiders to learn something new? This one's pretty obvious. The answer is no, because it's just one experience. However, if it were to be expanded into a series with a clear purpose and values around it, and people continued to show up again and again, there were return participants, then it could be a community with proper investment. And then what about a Twitch super user program? So this is something that does exist. These Twitch kind of VIPs, they're actually brought into the office or speak with staff to give the staff feedback. Yes, this is a community. It's a community because everyone that's within it is making progress toward becoming more masterful in their work as a Twitch broadcaster. And they're also getting access to and connected with one another, as well as to Twitch staff and elders, as we would call them in the community speak. And they've all opted into the program. So they are not voluntold that they are suddenly Twitch VIPs. They are actually opted into the program, and they can come and go as they please. So that is an example of a community. The other three, those are mirages. So what I want you to do and think about is, how do you feel when you have been invited to join a community that you realize later on is a mirage? How does that make you feel when you've gone through that experience, when you're really hoping that you're going to be part of something that is a community, and then you find out maybe not so much? You can pause the video here and kind of write down, reflect on your experiences. This will help you to understand what your members might feel if you create a mirage for them. The next question I want you to ask yourself is, what do you predict the result will be if you build a mirage community for your brand? So especially related to your answer to the prior question, how do you think your members will feel if you invite them into a mirage? Again, you can pause the video here and answer this question, and then click play when you're ready to go. Okay, now let's talk through a case study. Let's talk about the company Glossier. So for those of you who do not know the wonderful makeup brand that is Glossier, it is a brand that is based out of New York. It has been in operation for several years now and is often touted as a brand that was created because of a community that was built around its founder. So part of Glossier is a community, does have brand community components, but other parts of it are more about audience building, which is what you'll be more familiar with if you are in marketing. So what are the parts that are audience? Well, there's one example that is often talked about in the media with Glossier, which is that they will bring in or survey a lot of their customers, whether that is through Instagram DMing and sending them survey links, or whether it's through sending out an email. They are getting a lot of user feedback, and it's great qualitative insight that they're getting. So they will, there's one story where they asked their customers, who is it that you look up to? Like, who's your hero? And this gave them qualitative insights for the kinds of products that they should create. So their milk jelly cleanser actually came out of asking this question, and they realized people wanted something soft and feminine. Now, that is great qualitative insight. It is, however, not a community. Just because you are talking to your customers, one to many, or many to one, does not mean that they are connecting to one another. But Glossier does have a program. It's actually run on Slack today, where thousands of their members, their top customers, gather. They talk about Glossier. They also talk about their lives. They make lunch plans. They go to pop-up shop openings together, and they are really deeply engaged with one another. That is a brand community. And they had a community manager running that. They probably still do. And that is what is actually this much more bonded, these knit relationships. That's what's happening in that space. So the difference there is between audience and community. So the one is being called community, it's a mirage. The other one is a true brand community. All right, let's take all of these definitions and think about them in your specific context. So what you're going to do is you're going to download the Define Your Community worksheet, and you're going to fill out one of two sets of questions. Either you have a brand community today, or you don't have a brand community yet. And so depending on which one you answer yes to, you will start to answer the questions in that section. Okay? So to wrap up this lesson, what we've talked about so far, we've gotten into the right mindset to build true brand communities. And again, remember, you can come back to that video, to that audio, anytime you need some encouragement. You also learned some key definitions that many people get wrong that mess up efforts over the long term. And finally, you have started to understand how to identify mirage communities, or communities that call themselves communities but don't have the proper investments to make them so. And so all of this today will then give you the context that you need to start to think about what you're building. Is what you're building a true brand community, or is it a mirage? And if it is a mirage, that's fine, no shame in that. How can you then make the proper investments to take it to the next level? You're going to have a worksheet, and I also encourage you, if you have not already, to check out the Building Brand Communities, either the hardback book or the audio book. It will help you and go even deeper into these definitions. So it will be helpful not only for this first lesson, but throughout the rest of this course. Thanks everyone. Let's move on to lesson 2.